That morning on the shores of Dunkirk, a thin mist drifted like a curtain reluctant to lift. Tommy walked slowly through the abandoned streets of the town, as if every stone reminded him of voices that once lived there. He did not know whether his steps were carrying him toward safety, or merely stretching time before danger found him. Yet he kept walking, pushed forward by a fragile strand of hope. When he reached the edge of the beach, the scene before him felt like a dream drained of color. Thousands of soldiers sat in silence facing the sea, which looked colder than it had in the previous days. They were waiting for ships that might come or might never be seen at all. In the distance, the waterline trembled with the echo of gunfire that never truly faded. Tommy found a small gap among the rows of soldiers. He stood there staring at the horizon, where sea and sky met in a shared sadness. He tried asking a few men nearby, but most only shrugged or stared blankly. The silence felt like a snare creeping around them, tightening with every breath. Behind them, the ruined city poured smoke into the sky. Every cloud of it was a sign that time was running out. Yet no one moved. They were all trapped in a ritual of waiting that defied explanation. Tommy realized something he did not dare speak aloud. Fear was not only about the possibility of dying. Fear also emerged when one did not know when to act. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the cold sand cling to his boots. A new day had begun, yet it felt like an ending unwilling to announce itself. He opened his eyes again and saw sunlight slowly emerging through the clouds. It did not bring warmth, but it signaled that time continued to move. Tommy took a deep breath and tried to imagine possibilities he could not yet see. He remained standing, waiting for whatever might come. Amid the restless crowd, a voice from a loudspeaker called a small group toward the wooden pier they called the Mole. Tommy followed the slow-moving river of men, as though the entire line was one great body learning to breathe again. Along the path, the sea breeze carried the scent of salt mixed with smoke. Each gust felt like a whisper, reminding him that this place was the boundary between hope and ruin. The pier looked fragile, yet it stood firm against the waves that never stopped striking it. The soldiers lined up neatly. They stared at the sea with eyes that were hard to read. Some placed their final hopes on the stillness of the water. Others wrapped despair around themselves, like an old coat that could not be taken off. Tommy stood among them, feeling the planks of the pier tremble under his feet every time water struck the beams beneath. Suddenly, the sound of an aircraft approached. It was a growl ripping through the sky. Everyone looked up. Some dropped flat to the ground. Others simply held their breath. Tommy looked to the sky and saw a small dot moving swiftly. A moment later, the sound of distant fire grew louder. Panic rose like a second wave no one could hold back. The officers tried to calm the lines. They signaled for everyone to stay in place, but frightened bodies were hard to control. A single movement from one soldier could shatter the fragile calm. Tommy felt his heartbeat pounding. He thought about the small boats rumored to be coming from England. Were they real? Or only stories meant to keep hope alive? As the enemy plane passed overhead, its shadow fell on the sea like an unwelcome mark. Tommy lowered his head and whispered a prayer only he could hear. He waited. Everyone waited. And the sky seemed far from finished with them. When the aircraft noise faded, the atmosphere on the pier felt like a breath held for too long. Slowly the men stood again and reshaped the line, but the calm never truly returned. Every ear remained alert, listening for the next sound that might bring danger. Tommy looked at the sea, trying to read the rhythm of the waves, as though they might reveal hints of an uncertain future. In the distance, an English destroyer prepared to approach. The soldiers suddenly came alive. Faces that had been empty now showed flickers of hope. They moved toward the edge of the pier with quicker steps. Tommy was swept along by the surging crowd. The officers shouted orders, their voices mixing with the pleas of soldiers begging to be allowed on board first. As the destroyer drew nearer, artillery fire thundered from the sea. An explosion shattered the surface of the water and sent shock waves through the pier. A great wave rose. The ship rocked. Soldiers screamed as some lost their balance. Tommy grabbed a wooden post to keep himself from falling. He watched panic spread like fire racing across dry grass. The destroyer fought to reach the pier, despite the waves and enemy attacks. The crew signaled for the soldiers to wait their turn, but the tense line was impossible to control. Some tried leaping into the water. Others climbed ropes before they were allowed to. The chaos grew thicker. Tommy saw a soldier fall into the sea. Without thinking, he bent down to reach for him, but the strong current dragged the man away. Tommy could only watch as the soldier's head surfaced once, then sank behind the froth. It felt like witnessing a door shut forever without the power to stop it. He clenched his jaw and fought the trembling in his limbs. The day was far from over, and the sea was not done speaking. The destroyer finally managed to dock, and a narrow ramp was lowered so soldiers could board one by one. But another blast from the direction of the beach sent sand flying through the air. Instinctively, the soldiers ducked. Tommy felt the world shrink to a small space containing only the sound of his own heartbeat. He forced himself forward with a surge of bodies pushing from behind. As the line inched toward the ship, Tommy heard splashing on the right side of the pier. He turned and saw several small civilian boats speeding in from open water. They looked tiny compared to the destroyer, yet their presence carried something different. A soft kind of courage in their movement, like unfamiliar hands reaching in the dark. Soldiers who noticed them whispered among themselves. Some thought it was coincidence. Others believed help from England had truly arrived in forms they never imagined. Another blast rocked the area. The destroyer was hit at the rear. The crew shouted orders to pull away. The soldiers already on deck were forced inside. Those who had not yet boarded watched their chance vanish. Tommy stopped a few steps from the ramp. The ship was already drifting away. Water churned by the explosion made the pier sway violently. Smoke thickened the air. His vision blurred. Tommy stepped back several paces to catch a breath not filled with ash. He saw the destroyer retreating, leaving a trail of dark smoke. The remaining soldiers watched it disappear with hollow eyes. Some struck the planks of the pier with frustration. Others bowed their heads and prayed. Tommy felt as though time had turned into an enemy. Their efforts seemed pointless, and the sea again asserted its distance from safety. He stood still while the world moved harshly around him. When the smoke from the destroyer finally thinned, the pier took on a strange emptiness. It was as if the entire shoreline held its breath, along with the soldiers still waiting for anything that might carry them home. Tommy walked along the fragile planks, trying to steady his thoughts as he observed the unending waves that ignored human fear. In the distance, the civilian boats were coming closer. Their shapes grew clearer. Some were small fishing boats. Others looked like old leisure vessels that had sailed England's rivers for years. Tommy felt warmth bloom faintly in his chest, but he also knew those boats could never hold the thousands scattered across the beach. He returned to the crowd and saw two soldiers whispering while pointing at the line of boats. They were already planning how to board first, before the situation became uncontrollable. Tommy listened quietly. The same questions rose in his mind. Who would be saved first? Would the arrival of the small boats be enough to change their fate? Another boom echoed from afar. Soldiers along the beach ducked. A seabird flew low with trembling wings, as if sensing the rising tension. Tommy looked at the horizon and understood how thin the line between safety and danger truly was. The civilian boats approached like small points of light emerging through a slowly lifting mist. When the first boat finally reached the shallows, a small cheer rose among the soldiers. Not a cheer of victory, but a restrained sigh of relief. Tommy felt his skin prickle. Something in the frozen world around them had begun to move again. A change was coming, and even if small, it was enough to make the hearts of weary men beat with a timid form of hope. The first small boat finally reached the shallow line of the beach. The soldiers ran toward it, but the civilian crew signaled for them to stay calm. An old man stood at the stern holding the tiller. His face was lined with age, yet his eyes shone with a resolve that was difficult to explain. He shouted that many more boats were coming behind them, and all of them were there to bring home as many men as they could carry. His voice felt like a lamp being lit inside a dark room. Not bright, but enough to make people look around again. Tommy watched the man with a sense of wonder. How could someone who was not directly involved in the war choose to sail toward danger? It felt as though he was witnessing a form of courage that no military handbook had ever taught him. More boats continued to approach. The sea appeared dotted with white specks, moving steadily even though the sky still held threats. But the calm did not last long. The sound of aircraft returned from the north. The soldiers looked up with tense faces. The civilian boat crews kept moving, guiding soldiers aboard one by one. Tommy grabbed the boat rope and helped steady the craft so it would not tip over. He felt seawater splash onto his face, carrying a saltiness that somehow cleared his thoughts. When an enemy aircraft emerged from behind the clouds, gunfire began. Some soldiers on the beach dropped flat. The civilian crews did not turn back. They simply moved faster and shouted short commands for everyone to stay focused. Tommy saw a young civilian shielding the head of a soldier who was trying to climb aboard. That small gesture felt like a shield made not of steel but of intention. A minor explosion burst in the water not far from where they stood. A large wave hit the soldier's legs, yet the boat stayed upright. In the chaos, Tommy felt something strange. A slowly rising certainty that maybe they truly could escape this place. The beach turned into a frantic dance between hope and fear. The civilian boats worked without rest, carrying soldiers to open water, then returning again like the rhythm of a great breathing. Tommy finally got his chance to board one. He jumped carefully and landed on wooden planks that seemed to have survived many seasons. The boat was filled with tense faces, but also a trace of relief. A young man working his crew signaled for Tommy to sit and hold the edge of the boat. Their movements had to stay balanced so the vessel would not lean. Tommy nodded and tried to follow the rhythm of the water striking the boat's side. Deep inside his chest, a faint image of England across the horizon appeared. A home that felt like a long dream. But the journey had only begun when they paddled away from the shore. Gunfire from above touched the surface of the sea again. Water sprayed upward like needles flung from the sky. The soldiers ducked, but kept rowing. There was no room left for waiting. They had to move. Waves from the side rocked the boat, yet the crew maintained their course with almost silent precision. In the distance, Tommy saw a friendly aircraft chasing an enemy plane. Two small dots spinning in the sky, like two birds praying to stay aloft. Every maneuver made the soldiers in the boat hold their breath. The tension spread, and even the surrounding water seemed to quiver. Moments later, a loud crash echoed. One of the enemy planes fell and sank slowly into the sea. A small cheer rose from the boat, but quickly faded because the war was not finished. Tommy felt the world moving faster. Yet for the first time since the day began, he could imagine the possibility of going home. The boat carrying Tommy eventually reached calmer waters far from the beach. But the calm felt fragile, like thin glass ready to crack. In the distance, a large ship waited to take soldiers from the smaller boats. The ship looked magnificent with a tall silhouette standing firm above the waves. The soldiers on the boat breathed more freely. At least they were closer to a place where death did not chase them from behind. The crew signaled for everyone to prepare to transfer when the big ship lowered its rope net. Tommy stood while gripping the boat's edge. He felt the boat sway as the current struck its bow. When they drew closer, the voices of the ship's crew became clear. The tone was firm but not harsh, like someone who had seen many storms and still chose to believe in tomorrow. As the boat touched the side of the ship, the soldiers hurried to climb the rope net. Tommy climbed along with them. His hands held tight, even though the salt water made the net slippery. As he ascended, he glanced down occasionally. The small boat was drifting away due to the large waves. The crew was already preparing to head back to the beach for the next group. Admiration grew inside him. They were not soldiers, yet their courage shone with a light he knew he would never forget. Upon reaching the deck, the soldiers were greeted by crew members who immediately offered water and thin blankets. The atmosphere inside the ship felt entirely different from the beach. There were no explosions or smoke that numbed the mind. Only footsteps and whispers filled the air. Tommy sat leaning against a wall while staring at the vast sea. It felt like watching the old world slowly dissolve while a new one quietly took shape. But he knew the journey was not over. They still had to cross the sea to reach England, and the water that seemed calm might still hide dangers yet to be revealed. The large ship began to move slowly away from Dunkirk. The engine hummed softly like the heartbeat of a giant awakening. The soldiers gathered on deck. Some sat with weary bodies and others stood watching the shrinking coastline. Tommy stood among them, resting his elbows on the iron rail. He stared at the land that gradually faded into a thin shadow. The beach, once filled with chaos, now looked distant and silent, like a memory refusing to age. The sea breeze carried a calming, salty scent, yet the calm was threaded with unease. The soldiers knew the ship was still within the enemy's reach. Aircraft could appear at any moment. Tommy straightened. He could no longer feel sand beneath his feet. Only the cold deck reminding him he was moving towards something uncertain, yet not entirely dark. A crewman passed by, handing out small pieces of bread and water. Trembling hands accepted them, as though receiving fragments of belief. Tommy bit the bread slowly. Its simple taste was enough to remind him his body was alive. Alive and inching closer to the possibility of going home. In the distance, the hum of an aircraft returned. Soldiers immediately looked up. Some tightened their grip on the rail. No one spoke. Only silent hope that the plane would be a friendly one. The tiny dot grew clearer. Tommy held his breath. When its shape became unmistakable, a cheer burst forth. It was an Allied plane on patrol. Relief washed over the deck like a soft tide. Gradually, fear shifted into unspoken gratitude. Tommy realized that every second since leaving the beach had been an unpromised gift. He looked at the fading sky. The world felt different. And for the first time since the chaos began, he believed the end of this journey might not be cast in darkness. When the sun dipped and its golden line touched the sea, the ship finally entered British waters. The mood on deck transformed. The soldiers stood straighter, as if their bodies had just remembered that the world was no longer chasing them. Tommy felt something move inside his chest. A quiet relief seeping in like gentle light into a dark room. The ship approached a small harbor packed with civilians. They crowded together, waving at the weary faces appearing on deck. Some carried thermoses of hot water and blankets. Others simply stood crying in silence. Tommy never imagined homecoming could feel like a dream dripping slowly and gathering into reality at the edges of his eyes. As he climbed down the rope net to reach the pier, Tommy's knees nearly buckled. Not from exhaustion, but from something akin to emotion filling his body. He saw a small child offering a cup of warm tea to the soldier in front of him. The tiny hand trembled, but the smile held steady. Tommy received another cup from a woman in a brown coat. He whispered a thank you. The woman nodded without asking anything. A worn train waited by the roadside to take the soldiers to safety. Tommy boarded and sat by the window. As the train began to move, he looked back at the harbor. The sea looked far away and no longer like a chasm waiting to swallow them. He knew many had not returned from Dunkirk, but he also knew courage had come from places they never expected. From the sea, from the sky, from the small boats that refused to surrender. The train rolled on. Tommy closed his eyes. He did not know what awaited him tomorrow, but he knew one thing. He had lived to witness hope find its way home.